Hi, everybody. The focus of this class is evaluation and assessment. We're going to look at this particular focus using student work to help guide us. So what we're going to be doing is taking pieces of student work and looking at what they know as writers, what they don't yet know as writers, and where we can go next with them in our instruction. So that is kind of the focus of what we're going to be doing in today's class. So our agenda is we're going to write into the day, then we're going to discuss what evaluation and assessment is. I'm going to have you guys look at one particular student and analyze his writing based on what you see. Then I'm going to have you look at specific grade level writing. So I'm going to have you look at your own grade level that you teach, but also look at some other different grade levels so you can see the variance within them. And then we're going to reflect out of the day. So let's go right into it. So evaluation versus assessment. In my mind, this is how the two things are different. Evaluation, there's value in the middle of that word. So in an evaluation, it's a mostly student-directed kind of thing in which students are showing what they value as learners, really what they value as writers. And to show what they value, they will pick documents or products that show things that influence them as learners. They might pick pieces of writing that show their learning. And again, this is a student-driven thing. And the final product for this, to me, is a portfolio, some sort of portfolio system that is created by the student, directed by the student, and given to the teacher, and even given to classmates to show what they've learned over a certain period of time, what's influenced them, and what they've learned from those influences. Assessment, in my mind, is a teacher-driven thing. And so the teacher examines what students know. Assessment is ongoing. It can be formal, like in the sense of kind of grading things or using rubrics to determine what kids know or don't know. Or it could be informal things like conferences, things like that. Assessment informs instruction. So I take what I've analyzed from my conference notes, from scored rubrics, from any kind of interviews I have with kids, and I use that collection of knowledge to now know what to teach next when I'm starting to plan lessons and mini lessons, things like that. Assessment should give the teacher insight into a student's writing knowledge. And again, it's mostly teacher driven. So the products for this that I'm collecting are conference notes, any kind of interviews I do with kids, and scored rubrics. I see data collection in terms of, what do I need to collect from my students to kind of give a rounded idea of who they are as writers. I see four things that you need to collect. Two things are student created and two things are teacher kind of driven. The two student created things are portfolios, in which students will upload 2 or 3 artifacts each quarter. So by the end of the year, they might have 8 to 10 artifacts that show what they've learned as writers. It can be published products, it can be pieces of writing and process, it can be a mini lesson that a teacher taught, it could be an influential book, it could be an influential author that taught them a certain technique, it could be responses they received from their classmates when they're in the author's chair. It can be, it can be a whole collection of things. These in portfolios, it's not just finished final products that are perfectly edited. They might choose to put a couple pieces in there that show a finished product, but they don't have to. The second thing that students are creating are self-assessments. So every time you teach a particular genre, and there is some sort of published product at the end of that genre study, then the student should be creating a self-assessment of themselves, showing, having them reflect on what they learned and whether or not they incorporated different things that you taught into their final pieces of writing. So these are student directed. They're collected for each publication. And so this is cut off from you guys from your screen, so you can't quite see it, but it says you're going to probably collect student self-assessments about 4 to 8 times a year. So one for each genre. So if you do like a memoir study, informational text study, a persuasive study, a poetry study, and a, I don't know, pick any other study, like a story writing or a fairy tale study. Then, so if you teach those five genres throughout the year, then you should have five student self-assessments that go with each of those products. That's on the student end. On the teacher end, you should be collecting conference notes, notes each time you meet with the students. So you should have about 3 to 4 notes per month per writer in your classroom. And then grading rubrics. So these are rubrics for major genre studies, and I would aim to have at least one a quarter, so that by the end of the year you have at least four, but maybe have 4 to 8 depending on how many different genres you can teach. So we've already talked about conference notes. So that's the teacher-driven assessment. And we've already kind of talked about what kinds of notes you can take and how to take them in an earlier class. So, so take that knowledge into this particular topic that we're talking about today. The second thing that I wanted to talk about are portfolios. So student-driven evaluation. And I think there's a portfolio process that students go through. This is actually from Jane Hanson's book, When Learners Evaluate. And she talks about the process as being collect, select, reflect, project, and affect. So we're asking students to collect all the different things that show their influences on them as writers. So it can be anything that they put in their daybook. It can be any final product. It could be an anchor chart. It can be a mini lesson. It can be a mini lesson daybook sheet that they put into their writer's notebook. It could be a final product. So it could be a whole collection of things that students use to choose from. So first, they just gather all that stuff together. They lay it in front of them on their desk, and then they select. They decide what they want to include. They ask themselves, who am I as a writer? What have I learned as a writer? And how can I show this in the portfolio? Now, I've done this all the way from kindergarten all the way up through college. So you just kind of modify the questions a little bit, and it's a little bit more teacher helped directed in kindergarten and a lot more autonomous as the kids get older. So from their collection, they need to select some things, some different artifacts to upload into their portfolio. Then they reflect. So they think about their learning. They describe what piece they chose, why they chose it, what does it say about them as a writer, what could they teach others about their learning. So in younger grades, I have kids do an oral reflection. As they get older and more competent in their writing abilities, I have them do more written reflections. In elementary school, it might be reflections that you can put on a note card. In upper grades, it could be longer, maybe one-page reflections that show their thinking. Project. So then they have to figure out a way of projecting this so other people can see it. A lot of people use a paper-based kind of system where you have a folder with inserts like you see up there with Alex's portfolio in the top left or the binder in the right. But also I've seen a lot of teachers start to use things like VoiceThread and wikis as digital portfolios. So these are different options for you when you think about how to allow students to project their learning. And finally, affect. So how do you affect the learning of others? And so for this, you might do a gallery walk. Or if you have all these things uploaded onto a wiki, then kids go and click on each other's wiki pages and leave response. If they have a paper-based portfolio system, then they might leave their portfolio on a desk and they rotate around the classroom and they leave sticky notes on each other's different pieces. So the whole point of this, again, is to know that your learning is not just for an isolated, it's not just for you to keep to yourself. Our intention is to spread what we've learned to other people so that they can learn even more things that they didn't even think that they were learning. So that's a portfolio system for you to consider creating in your own classrooms. And again, you can do this from K all the way through college. Collect, select, reflect, project, affect. It's student driven. It should not take you too much time because the students are putting this together. Okay, so we talked about conferences, which was teacher directed, portfolios, which is student directed. The next one is grading rubrics, which is teaching directed. So for each genre study, I think what you want to consider doing is creating a grading rubric that consists of all the various mini lessons that you've taught to help them be competent towards that particular genre, and also shows you use it as an analytical tool to determine what kids know and what they use and what they put into their particular final product and what they are still working towards and need further help with. So this is a grading rubric that the teacher would actually fill out on a student based on analysis of their writing. What I want to do now is I have uploaded onto Moodle a second grade example. This is the little boy named Jacob, and I want to give you a little bit of background about Jacob. So this was a student that I had back. This video is actually probably almost 15 years old now, but it was such a powerful, incredible video that I'm so glad we recorded it so that we could use this, at this time in this year. So Jacob was a little boy who was a second grader, who at the time that he went into second grade had a teacher named Deb Robson. Deb Robson, at the beginning of that school year, found out that she had breast cancer. And so she had asked the parents, she had called a meeting with the parents and said, listen, I'm going to be out of class for quite a many sessions because I have to get chemotherapy. And, there's obviously going to be changes to me. And how would you like me to address this with your children? And so the parents, of course, were like, we'll talk to our children at home, but we also want you to go ahead and talk to them about it in class and talk to them about whatever you feel comfortable sharing with them. So Deb talked with her kids, and as she was talking to her kids about her having cancer, this little boy named Jacob, all of a sudden, Deb describes it as this like incredible light bulb moment, where as soon as Jacob heard about Deb's cancer, he raised his hand and goes, I've had cancer too. And that entire year, Jacob spent writing cancer stories. So there was this like powerful connection between the teacher and the student that really opened up a door for them to thoughtfully share with one another this experience. So that's the context. That's the background to Jacob's story. What I want you to do is I want you to watch the video. I have uploaded for you the sample of Jacob's writing. And after you watch the video, I want you to look at his writing. And I want you to compare it to the second grade memoir rubric. And I want you to analyze his writing based on what do you think he does well and where you would go next with him as his teacher. So you are going to first watch the video of Jacob. So you're going to this is going to be the end of part 1 of our video. Watch Jacob. Then you're going to download the analysis sheet, and I want you to analyze what's present and what's missing and where you would go next as his teacher. All right, this is the end of part 1 of our evaluation and assessment video. Next, you're going to watch the Jacob video, you're going to analyze his writing, and you're going to bring it back, and we're going to talk about it.